Ooh, another white boy with a podcast. Pronouns, Jim Bro. Another white boy with a podcast. You want to see the video? It went viral.
Hi Gains Gurus, and welcome to TMGP, the Muscle Growth Podcast, episode 12. I am your host, Roscoe, and today we are welcoming Jake Remmert onto the show for part 2 of his 2-part series. To hear part 1, please check out the previous episode 11. Jake has a BS Honours in Exercise Science and is a certified strength and conditioning specialist. He is currently a researcher, lecturer, and PhD candidate at Florida Atlantic University, where he is working in the Muscle Physiology Laboratory. Here, his research focuses on optimizing program design to maximize hypertrophy and strength. Jake is also a coach with Data-Driven Strength, where he provides educational services and one-on-one coaching for clients with goals ranging from elite powerlifting performance and competitive bodybuilding to recreational strength, muscle growth, and fat loss. He is a competitor himself as well, with nearly 10 years of training experience and multiple competitions under his belt. In today's episode, we can look forward to insights from Jake related to his projects in academia and using research studies and data-driven techniques to drive strength and hypertrophy gains. Given that brief glimpse into Jake's remarkable background, let's jump right into the show. Okay, cool. Let's hop into the papers. The effect of resistance training proximity to failure on muscular adaptations and longitudinal fatigue in trained men. I love that it was done in trained men. In trained people. Let's just say. Otherwise,
we do need more. We do need more in women. 100%. We're trying.
For sure.
We're trying.
Absolutely. I get you. And hopefully, maybe. Do you have any female participants in your current?
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, all the stuff we've been doing the last couple of years, we're trying to really, as much of a 50-50 split as we can get.
Wow. And trained and untrained as well?
We usually train people for our studies here.
Okay.
I have done one in my undergrad. I had one study that had a mixture of untrained as well. But it kind of depends on the study, right? On the question that we're trying to.
For sure. So for this paper, we're going to spitfire, I think is the term that we used previously. Or spitball, I can't remember, spitfire, let's go for that.
Whatever word you want, man.
Yeah. So summarize, abstract, conclusion, any really interesting things or really weird things, you go. The floor is yours.
So that was my master's thesis actually.
Which was nice.
And with that one, we were trying to see, there's some research on how accurately people can judge their proximity to failure, right? And we wanted to get, hold on, let me back up. My master's thesis was a part of this project, right? It wasn't the whole project. So the bulk of it, which is the results that are in that paper specifically, are on the adaptations over, I can't remember how many weeks it was, 8 weeks maybe, between people training at different proximities to failure, right? So they're either going to failure, they're going to stop at, I think it was 1 to 3 RIR, right? 7 to 9 RPE, or 4 to 6 RPE, which is 4 to 6 RIR. And that one, let's just say we learned a lot in that study, that if you read the paper, you can see, we are exceptionally cautious with how it's presented, because the failure group had to be discontinued halfway through because people were getting hurt, right? So we had to stop. And so there was that. And then even in the 7 to 9 RPE group, the people who, there was enough people getting a lot of discomfort from squatting that close to failure, that we had to pull that back. So then it became, those were the RPEs still for bench as we went, but for squat, now it's all the squats easier. So that kind of changed halfway through. The ultrasound measurements that we used for hypertrophy were, we learned a lot since then, right? So those measurements were solid, but they could have been better. So that there was just more. It's not that they're bad. It's just that there was enough variability just due to the measurement device, that the quality of the measurement device, that we had to. We just can't be super confident in everything that we found, right? Like there's just so much variation. So basically what we ended up finding was that, for strength, being a little bit further from failure tends to be good. For hypertrophy, we really can't say anything is really the main. We can't say anything mostly because the data just kind of got messy, So that's one of those like more research needed, right? Is like the whole abstract. But it was still a great experience. And like I said, my master's thesis kind of got to be tagged in as part of that. It did not get messed up, thankfully. But yeah, it's still a really good study to have done. It was just one of those learning experiences for us and others. So
for sure.
Yeah.
No, and I get what you mean. And it's really cool that you guys still published it and that it didn't affect your masters. I think that's
yeah,
the main thing.
For sure. Like we still want to get it out there, right? Like it's still useful information.
Sure.
It just we had such high hopes for it going in, and then it's just that's how it goes, dude. And that's some of the stuff that you don't think about with research until you actually get in there and try to do it. Is like, oh wow, this happened. Oh, because people were getting hurt. That's why they did this, or what, So yeah.
Yeah, well done. I'm sure your ethics board had something to say. I had something to say about it. Like, hang on, you need to stop now. How many injuries were there? Or that confidential?
When I should say, to be fair, when I say injury, it's not like catastrophic injuries, right?
Yeah.
It's like somebody's hip is sore enough that they don't want to do it anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's more stuff like that, but it's still nonetheless like that.
No.
Like, if someone's training on their own, they're not going to squat that week because their hip hurts, right? So,
yeah. Okay. And you don't want to force them just to see, just test the waters. No.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. And in terms of your next one, well, I don't know what order they were, but the next one we have here, accuracy of intraset repetitions in reserve predictions during the, I don't know, I think I saw that you had read a few different exercises. Like I see this bench here. I'm not sure if there was one for squat and things. Can we maybe kind of, I don't know if you can bunch them. If you can't, that's fine. But just try and save time. Can you try and like maybe bunch them into one if you did have multiple ones? Like, what was the overall kind of findings for those various different ones where it was basically testing the accuracy of predictions from the athletes for different exercises? Thank
you for reining me in, by the way. I know I can ramble like crazy, so always tell me to shut up if you need to.
No.
So I've had two studies on that same topic, right, of how accurately people can judge their proximity to failure. One was in my undergrad, and then one was my master's thesis. So it was actually really cool that it could kind of build on itself like that. So the undergrad one, we did bicep curl, tricep push down, and seated cable row, and that was with men and women, trained and untrained, right? So a really big breadth of subjects. And then the master's thesis one was just the bench press. It was going to have the squat, but the squat, we had to discontinue the high RPE stuff. But so it was just the bench press there, and that was just in trained men on that one. But sort of across both, we got similar results in that the accuracy was really good on average, right? Which is, I think, the key point that which kind of lines up with the rest of the literature on the area, that people on average are quite good at judging how close to failure they are. On average, there's a meta-analysis from Halprin that found on average it's like about 1 rep off, which is pretty good. I think functionally that's good enough, right? Like if you think it's 2, but it's really 1 or 3, that's not a huge deal probably, right? And as you go through a training block, you add a little bit of load, you add some reps, you get closer to failure, it solves itself. But anyway, so it kind of lined up with that. People were pretty accurate. The bench press data on the trained men, they were very accurate. Like it was a lot of them less than half a rep off on average. And that one we were looking at also, did they get more accurate over time, which I was really interested in, because like, although on average people are really accurate, as I found in that undergrad study with the 3 different exercises, even untrained people were on average very accurate, that there's still some people who are not as accurate, right? Like
That's
the average is the key thing, right? No, I get it.
I would have wrecked that average so badly.
Sure. I promise this is quick, very quick tangent on that. Is I had this, right? I was doing leg extensions and I was going to what I thought was 2 RIR. And I was like, okay, set to 12, 2 RIR. Maybe the next I got 11 or something, 2 RIR. On this last one, let me go to failure just to see, just to kind of audit myself.
I did the same.
And I got like 30 reps or something. Like, it was ridiculous. So, yeah.
Yeah, you and I would have both catastrophically destroyed your averages then. Yeah.
That's why I just basically go to 0 RIR and pretty much everything these days, man. Just solve it. But anyway, so I was like, some of these people who aren't as accurate, do they get better over time? We found no, they did not, because they were just shit. Well,
I can get it. What RIR?
Right. The key is they're not the same subjects. So if we would have taken the same subjects through a longitudinal study, maybe they would have, maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. But the one where we tried to look at it was all untrained men. They were so accurate from the get-go, they just didn't get more accurate over time. So overarching stuff we found is, on average, people are pretty accurate. They did not get better at over time, but probably because they were accurate to begin with. They tend to be more accurate with lower rep sets, right? Which probably is related to like the discomfort of high rep sets, right? It's just hard to tell. People tend to be more accurate in later sets in a session, which makes sense, right? As you've done one set, now you can kind of calibrate that rating for the next set or whatever. So it all kind of lines up with the other studies in the field, but it was still cool. That was actually the first longitudinal study on if people get better over time, which is cool. There's since been another one that they also did not get better over time because they were accurate to begin with. So we got to try to find, that's like, I'm so tired of studying that, to be honest, but like if there's another study on that topic that I have to do, it's going to be, let's take high rep leg press or leg extensions or something that's hard to judge, do that for a while and see if they get better over time. Like that's the thing.
That would be interesting. I think,
especially like 4 RIR or something. Like,
yeah. I think on that note, like you mentioned, I think I'm pretty good at judging low rep work, like how close I am, like if I got 1 more or 2 more, 3 more. But as soon as you mentioned like going like 20 or 30 RM, like it could be 10 off plus minus, like, and then what I do when I'm doing that, like the high rep stuff, if I'm getting close to that like goal that I had set, then I'll start slowing it down and making it really difficult. I'm like, okay, I am actually going to force myself to hit 30 or be within a few. But I think that would be so hard. Hopefully they don't hit you with it though. You must give it to one of your students. I think they must.
There we go.
You can help them and give them advice, but they must do the work. You can judge it. You can grade them out.
Or maybe somebody listening needs an idea for their master's thesis. There you go.
There we go. Hopefully. Predicting total back squat repetitions from repetition velocity and velocity loss. That sounds pretty interesting. I see you've got a few. I don't know quite how they work. Like I see you've got numbers next to them. Is that different journals that they were released to? What do those numbers represent? Sorry, I'm not a researcher.
I'm not entirely sure.
Oh, don't worry. It's probably just journal numbers or publication numbers or something. So you've got a few of those on your research gate. What were your findings for that? And did they change it? Did you do different just squats, or were there other? I see
that was just squat.
Yeah, just squat. Okay, and squats.
I believe so. Yeah. That one was from a handful of years ago, actually. That I wasn't here for any of the data collection. It was done previously, and then myself and Josh Pelland, who is also in the lab here, we both tried to help kind of get it across the finish line. So we both helped to finish writing the paper and that stuff. But that one, I'm trying to be completely honest with you, I'm trying to even remember what the results were, because that one, it's been a minute. I wasn't involved in the data collection process.
I get you.
And then it's been a minute since we finished writing it. So that one is escaping my brain. If I'm
don't even stress. You've got 20, so we've got others to shout it on. And then I tell you what, when you've published your current research, then we can jump back. You can do a little refresher.
There we go.
Effective proximity to failure during resistance training on upper body.
Yeah, so some of these are probably abstracts that we did at a conference. So
Okay.
when we did that last year, I think there was 4 of them. There was upper body strength, upper body hypertrophy, lower body strength, lower body hypertrophy.
Mhm.
They were all from that same study I talked about with the different RPE groups and the failure groups
Okay.
got dropped.
Okay. I see.
They were all just pieces of that data. When we went
Okay.
when you go to a conference, like you need to just present a very concise little.
I get you. Okay.
That's what those are. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for that. I didn't know that. And then the resistance training, proximity failure, and responses of neuroprotective markers. Is that still the same stuff, or is it now different?
That one is a little different. That's another one that I was involved with very, very little.
Okay.
So I'm not super familiar with the neuroprotection stuff. I know that prior students that have been at this school and this program have looked a lot into like brain-derived neurotropic factor. That's a marker of neuroprotection, right? It seems like it helps to, delay some of those like Alzheimer's symptoms and cognitive decline with age and those sorts of things. That is probably increased with exercise, right? And that I'm certainly not an expert in that specific thing by any means, but that study was trying to look at that a little bit as well. That is another one that the results escaped me because I was not super involved. So yeah, there you go.
No, brilliant, and it makes perfect sense. I do quite a lot of, well, I don't know what to call it. I guess fun research into like longevity and things, and everything just points to like muscle growth, or not muscle growth, but total muscle, and exercise being like literally top 5 factors for longevity, like for over everyone, I guess, so for the whole population, which is super interesting and something that I really enjoy. And I'm going to definitely, I actually had a biohacker guy on, Riley Jarvis.
Interesting. Okay.
About sleep and things, and I'm actually doing his genetic testing and all that stuff at the moment. So that's very cool stuff going in there. And in terms of, let's jump into the next one. Dose response relationship between estimated resistance training, proximity failure, strength gain, and muscle hypertrophy, a series of meta regressions.
Yes, this was what I mentioned earlier, the meta-analysis looking at the effect of RIR on hypertrophy and strength. This was that paper. So that was taking all the studies that at least in some way compared different proximities to failure, and very few of them were very clearly defined. So a lot of them, they had a group trained to a certain velocity loss. So like until their reps slowed down by a certain amount, or maybe they just did this many reps with this percentage of 1RM. So things like that, where we had to estimate the RIR, and the methods for estimation are all in the supplementary materials if people want to read through those and, see if they agree with how we did it or not. But anyway, so there's a lot of that going on. And then we were able to look at all of that, see if there's some sort of dose response with hypertrophy and with strength. And for hypertrophy, seems like there is some sort of relationship there that on average, closer to failure tends to lead to better growth. Initially, it seemed like an exponential relationship to where closer to failure was better. And then you got this little like thing where failure was really cool. That since, we've version 2, like I mentioned, that's now sort of out there, a linear relationship seems like a little bit better fit. So people can calm down about taking everything to failure. But yeah, so that's the hypertrophy stuff. So that's cool. For strength, not much of a relationship at a set load, right? So basically the idea for strength being if you're doing, let's say sets of 5 or something, right? Maybe these are like your back off sets or whatever, that we probably don't want to just get closer and closer to failure because we're doing more reps and because we're getting more and more fatigued, right? If we're getting closer to failure because we're getting more fatigued, we're doing more reps, that doesn't seem to be helpful for strength. If we're getting closer to failure because the load is getting heavier, that is helpful for strength, right? So how I try to, kind of guidelines would be how to actually apply that, like top sets. Awesome. Let's have that load go up because usually the rep number is constrained there, right? On like back off sets, or if we're just doing, straight sets or whatever, usually try to cap those at like somewhere between, 5 to 7 or 8 RPE, something like that on average. Like I don't want to push all those to failure, right? Because we're getting too tired by the end. Force production might be going down a little bit. That's really not what we want. So we want to stay a little bit further from failure. on those. Anyway, I'm rambling again. There you go.
No, not at all.
As rapid fire as I can be.
Yes, there we go. Perfect. Next one. Longitudinal markers of muscle damage. Were you quite involved? Not really. Skip, pass. This one.
That I believe is from that same study, the same proximity to failure study, where we were doing, we were looking at like muscle soreness and perceived readiness to train and those sorts of things that, again, got a little tricky because we had to leave the failure group early on. We had to change the squat protocol. So it got a little bit messy, but it's what you would think, right? Like when you're training closer to failure, people tend to feel a little bit more fatigued on average. Yeah.
Okay. What were those markers for the muscle damage?
That was, so we had what's called, what is the name of it? I'm forgetting now, but it's a little machine that you can push into somebody's muscle and they tell you when it hurts. No,
okay.
Well, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, but yeah, it's like a pressure pain thing where you push in, there's a little pressure sensor and they tell you when it hurts. So like if you can push harder before they say it hurts, then that's like they're less sore. Does that make sense?
Did you check with the ethics committee at
We did. We did. Yeah, it doesn't hurt that bad.
No,
it's not super comfortable, but
no.
But we had that, and we also took blood samples so we could look at creatine kinase and interleukin 6, and I think we might have did 3 also. But like just some markers of muscle damage in the blood and markers of inflammation as well, to see how they changed.
Are those precursors to muscle growth?
That's a great question, man. I can't say that I know enough about it. My not having looked at this a ton is that at least the inflammation stuff is associated with growth. Yeah. I'm not sure that I would say it's causative of growth.
Sure.
But certainly the inflammation process is part of it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That goes along nicely with the work done now on the cold water immersion and that kind of stuff. So showing that reduced swelling is bad for muscle growth. Like you do want to swell a little bit, not too much and not chronically.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There's a sweet spot.
Yeah, for sure. Like everything, you mentioned a few things that are trade-offs and what will be super interesting. And I think that maybe like in a while we should get some machine learning models to kind of figure out what that kind of optimal sweet spot might be, because that would be super interesting and super doable on a computer. Accuracy, so again, intraset, reps, and reserve, but in single and multi-joint trained men and women. Is that the same one?
This was the one I did in my undergrad, where we had the bicep curl, tricep push down, seated rows. Same trend in the results. I will say one cool little thing about that one was that I had them estimate RIR differently. So usually they would some studies like by Hackett, for example, they'll do like 10 reps and then estimate RIR and then continue the set to failure to then see how accurate they were. We've had some stuff from our lab previously where they're going to failure and they'll just call out, when they think they have 3 RIR, when they think they have 1 RIR, and then, you can sort of back calculate how accurate they were. That's what my master's thesis did. In this one, what I did was I had them go when they felt like they had 5 RIR, they said 5. And then after that point, every single rep, I had them tell me what RIR they thought they had, just to look at it a different way, right? And that what we found was that initial time they said 5, they were way off, right? They were off by 6 or something. So like that initial guess of 5 RIR isn't great, but when they get to saying 4, for example, they're pretty good, right? Which kind of makes sense. You're feeling it out as you go. And when they get to set 2, so much easier to judge because you just did a set to failure. And, so it kind of
smooths out the same way.
For the most part, yeah. I adjusted it slightly to maintain a certain rep range. Okay. But for the most part is small adjustments. But so that's practically what I would take away from that is if you're telling somebody to do sets until 5 RIR, might be cautious, right? They might not be super accurate. I might in terms of deliberately programming a certain RIR, probably 3 or 4 is probably about as far away as I would do. But yeah.
that's super useful, and I hope the coaches listening take that in.
There we go.
Effect of so this one was the thickness of those two. So one for the pec and one for the lats. I think is that correct?
I don't think we've done a lats. We've done pec and quad for sure.
Oh, sorry. Here, I misread. Vastus lateralis, not lat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
I did confused for sure.
So yeah.
No.
Sorry, I never did anatomy.
But those are from that same data. Yeah, those are from more conference abstracts, I think.
And like you mentioned, pretty strong correlation initially from 0 to RIR that you thought might be exponential, but then on subsequent studies, then more linear.
Yeah, it still seems like, closer to failure on average, a little bit more growth, but not quite as sensational as it seemed at first.
I guess. Yeah, there was
Which is how it all goes, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of hype on finally you got to train to failure. You're not getting any gains if you're not training to failure for a while on the internet, and then kind of dies down. And I guess that's why.
Yeah. Yep.
So the last one I've got here, this one I hope you did because it's super interesting. So sorry if you're not like that involved. But methods for controlling and reporting resistance training, proximity to failure, current issues, and future directions.
Yeah,
is this one of yours?
Sure. That was the first publication that we had, actually, which is cool.
Oh wow! Oh, so I guess I mentioned order top to bottom probably because you mentioned, I think.
Yeah, maybe so.
Maybe
so. But yeah, that one was cool. That one, it's more geared towards research methodology than that's cool. Practically applied things. Yeah, and a lot of this was because of what eventually went into that meta-analysis of dose response of RIR for hypertrophy and strength, was that so many of these studies just do not control proximity to failure, or they don't report it either, right? So like, I'm sure everyone has noticed this by now if they're not aware of the research, but like you tell somebody to do a set of 5 at 75% 1 rep max, I might get, RPE 6, you might get RPE 2, someone else might get RPE 10, right? It's vastly different between different people. And then, if you do velocity loss, it can be different. If you do whatever, right? So all these different methods that people do, it's not that they're not valid. It's not that it's not good, but it just isn't quantifying proximity to failure in the way that currently seems like the most useful, which would be reps in reserve. So that's kind of what that paper was trying to outline, was like, here are the different methods people use. Here's why it's really difficult to say anything about what's the best proximity to failure to train at, because we just don't measure it ever, right? So that's why it's really hard. And then we sort of proposed at the end a method that might work really well, which was to use velocity alongside a set to failure. So basically you do a set to failure, measure velocity every rep, and then from there you get what's called the velocity RIR profile, right? To where your 0 RIR velocity was this, your 1 RIR velocity was this, 2 RIR, so on and so forth. You can count all the way back. And we've had some research from our lab that shows that seems to be relatively stable, over time. Different for different people, different for different exercises. So it becomes a pain in the butt to make this profile for everyone in every exercise, but seemed like it would work, right? So there I could say, maybe my 2 RIR velocity on this leg press is 0.22 meters per second. Sweet, right? So that means if I want my study for people to train until 2 RIR, I'll have this subject train until their velocity hits 0.22 or, thereabouts, and then they'll stop. And it's like, it seems perfect, right? So we attempted to do this, right? We had a study where we were doing this, and it's just not as clean as you would think it would be, for a variety of reasons, right? Like it's completely dependent on every rep being done as fast as they possibly can, right? They can't pace themselves or anything like that, which is hard to do. Yeah, it's just really hard to do, especially consistently. So that's an issue. People get stronger over time, so like that gets funky. If people like misgroove something, the velocity is slow, right? But maybe it's not because they're fatigued, it's just their technique got weird. So there's all these weird little things that happened and just made it not that clean. And so that we learned a lot, and I'm glad that we tried it. And it's not bad. It's just not the perfect solution that we wanted. So, to be determined, we're trying to figure out a better way to do that. But good news is people can just subjectively rate RIR and they can be pretty close, right? We have enough research to feel pretty confident in that. So
that is good. That's good. In terms of the velocity, was that on the concentric aspect of the lift? Like, for example, doing a bicep curl, but then also you can't really get that unless you have machinery, I guess, to get the velocity. Or is it like a
correct
kind of, okay. So you couldn't program that and be like, coach, he's going 0.22 meters per second. Take a look at that. That's
right.
Okay, so it was more for a lab situation.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy the velocity trackers. I think they're...
oh, really? Okay.
There's some that are, $300-$400 US now, which is like still a lot of money. I'm not going to buy one, but yeah, like it's a lot of money, but people do buy them, right?
Yeah,
so
no, for sure.
I've had clients that have used them, right? And we've had some good success. And like on an individual level, it's, you can figure out some of those weird little, what's the word I'm looking for?
These are the performance optimizers we're talking about here. These are the
yeah.
Take it serious.
Yeah, you can
just
find ways to make it work. But yeah, trying to design a research study with it got a little bit not perfect. So we'll try to improve and we'll try it again at some point.
I get you. And I'm so sorry for jumping around like this. I completely forgot in the introduction. I forgot to ask you what got you initially interested in this whole like in basically muscles and growth and powerlifting, all of that.
Well, initially, way back in the day, it started with Dragon Ball Z, like a lot of people. I watched a lot of anime my whole life, right? One of my earliest memories is seeing Dragon Ball Z. I can't remember before. So that's where a lot of it started. Just see these jack dudes on TV saving the world. And I'm like, I want to do that. And, so that was kind of the initial thing. But then some of it was for sports. I played a bunch of different sports growing up. I wasn't great, but like I tried it at least. And in high school, they got us in the weight room and that was something that was kind of fun. But then a lot of it sort of came back to, just wanting to change how I looked, right? Like
wanting to look like an anime character.
Yeah, and just wanting to look different, right? Like I was fortunate that I was never bullied or anything growing up, but nonetheless still felt a little bit uncomfortable, like just in my skin, and I just want to look different, right? And I remember I was like, well, how do I want to look? Well, those guys look on the TV look great, right? So tried doing this lifting weights thing and just sort of fell in love with it initially for hypertrophy, and then I heard about powerlifting, and I was like, that seems really cool. That's different. And that's I like the numbers and let me try that, right? And I fell in love with that and just powerlifted for 4 or 5 years or something, and competed a handful of times, and it was super fun. And again, I wasn't amazing. I was a very average powerlifter, but it was still a blast. I made a bunch of friends and connections. That's part of why I got down here,
I think I stalked your dots was 330 on your last. That's not average.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. Is that below average?
No.
Okay.
That's not average. No,
okay. I mean,
I think decent dots is 300, and then super advanced dots is like 350, and then after that you just
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Someday I'll have to come back and see if I can get that 315 bench. I never. I got to 297 and just never went back to try to. It's been a few years. It's been 3.5 years or something now since I've powerlifted. I just kind of wanted to try bodybuilding and have stuck with it. It's just been really fun. Someday I'll go back for sure. But I'm glad that I've done both, because I really developed a love for both for different reasons.
For sure.
They just mean different things to me. On a emotional, I don't want this to sound weird, but like almost on a spiritual level, they just feel very different and very special to me for different reasons. So I will come back someday to the powerlifting side, but for now, it's nice to not take 45 minutes to warm up and do one exercise, No,
I get you. All right. So last question before closing thoughts. I know it's a weird question, and I understand that there's weird constraints on it, but it's my question, so I can do what I want. If you are traveling on a spaceship to Mars, and wanted to maintain your muscle size, but you can only take 10 exercise, like you can only do 10 exercises, like your space suits only programmed to allow your body to do, it's a weird one, I know, to do 10 specific exercises. Can you give me a rundown of those 10 exercises, like grip width, exercise name, and then any other like extras to that exercise, like the type of bar or the, whatever other things you want to throw in there? And you can have anything you want. Like it's a cool space suit, but it's got only 10 space for 10 exercises in its memory, let's say.
Okay, cool. So let's go 100% with Smith machine squat on one of the Smith machines that is at a slight angle. I don't like the straight up and down ones are fine, but I like the slight angle. It's just really comfortable for me. Feet pretty close, heels elevated just a little bit. It's nothing just crushes my quads like that. So I want that for sure. Let me go through muscles in my head. Give me barbell RDLs. I know it's super basic, but like, I can do one set of that and be super sore the next day. They're great. I like those. Hot take, Bulgarian split squats. I actually really like those these days. I used to hate them, but for whatever reason, I get 100% glute out of those. It's great. Let me move on to upper body stuff. Give me a good, really, really good chest press machine where I can get really deep stretch. We have one in our lab that's from Body Solid that is the best chest press machine I've ever used in my life. I love that thing. You can get so deep. It's great. So give me one of those. Give me that's what for? Give me a nice row machine that's maybe like a prime row that's like hard in the stretch position. That'd be great. Give me maybe a lat pull down that's like, give me a neutral grip on that row, by the way. Let me do a lat pull down, neutral grip, maybe like just outside my shoulder width. I like that a lot. How many is that now? 6?
We're on 6, yeah.
6. Pec deck fly. Some of these basics, man, meat and potato stuff, I just still love them. I don't know why. But a good pec deck that, again, lets me get really nice and deep on that stretch and is smooth. Some of them feel weird and choppy, so give me a nice smooth one. I need curls in my life, so bicep curls. Let me do like a cable bicep curl where my arms kind of back behind me a little bit, my shoulders extended.
Asian curl.
There we go. Give me that nice curl. Old Faithful tricep push down with like the V-shaped bar.
Okay.
Right? I'm always a big fan of those. And what else do we need? Shoulders. Give me 2 more. Give me a good cable lateral raise. We have a tonal in our lab now that I'm in love with for these because you can do eccentric overload. Like it feels phenomenal for lateral raises. So give me like a good behind the back cable lateral raise. And that's 9.
One more.
Oh geez. Let me do, well, if I'm trying to keep the entire physique, what am I missing? Calves,
yeah.
Gotta have calves. Calves or abs? Man.
Neck.
Can I cheat and do body weight curls?
Body weight,
like, or so body weight crunches, right, to hit the abs, so I can get a calf machine. Is that cheating?
Yeah, that's cheating. That's cheating.
All right. You know,
but I get you. I think you can take out the chest exercises. Because you had a lot for chest.
I like them both.
I get you.
I mean, you gotta have a big chest.
You don't need calves and bars anyway. Or do you? Okay, you want the calves. You want the
Give
calves.
Me the calves. Yeah, calves. I need a standing machine where the platform is high enough that I can get that good deep stretch, but not so high that like I like it that perfect height to where my heel can just barely touch the ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that I'm not like, because my balance is really bad. So I want to be able to, I want to
do Bulgarians. It can't be that bad. I can't do that.
I got a whole
over. Oh, do you? Oh, okay.
Oh, for sure. I use a squat rack. Everyone can hate me,
but that's fine. What? So you hold on with one hand and have the dumbbell in the other?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I can't stabilize on that. So I've actually taken out of the program because it's just.
Yeah, I get it.
It's fine.
I get it.
All right. Well, on to closing thoughts. So, what advice or parting words of wisdom do you have for our listeners who are looking to embark on their own journey of muscle growth and health, I guess, but mostly muscle growth?
Wow. This might sound funny after we've talked about so much research stuff, but I think the biggest thing is like never let any of that get in the way of just consistently working hard. Like that is it really, it's so funny because at the end of the day, like it really does just boil down to like trying really hard for a long time.
Intensity.
You know? Yeah, you gotta and doing it in a way that you still recover from so you can consistently show up, right? Like you don't want to burn yourself out and all that, but like it's so easy to go down this research rabbit hole and to get so wrapped up in that. I've done it a lot. Everyone's done it, right? Where we get so wrapped up in this evidence-based thing and sometimes we forget to like just keep some of that brute in our program, you know? And like sometimes you just got to get in there and have some fun and go to town. And, you know, I think that's great, you know?
Absolutely. Got to have an anime montage kind of thing going in for some of the exercise.
You got to.
100%. Anything else?
I don't know, man. I think, you know, if people are interested in the research side, that's awesome. And I definitely would encourage people to, you know, investigate that stuff to whatever depth they want, right? If they want to go the grad school PhD route, that's awesome. If they want to go the route where, you know, you're not going through the formal academic side, but you still want to learn all about it and be in that world and talk about it and think about it and write about it and whatever, like that's awesome. And, you know, I never want people to feel like they have to do a PhD to do research stuff, right? Like you can still, you know, be involved in that world without doing all of that. There are, you know, certain opportunities that are only available, you know, when you do certain things, but it's not, you know, we don't need to gatekeep more than we have to, right? So I guess that's what I'll say on the research front, right? Like if you're excited about it, learn as much as you can, soak it all in, man, and have fun at the end of the day, right? That's what it's all about. And have fun. We're trying to get jacked and strong, but we gotta have fun along the way.
Absolutely. And the best way, coming in with a bit of bias, the best way to get jacked and strong and enjoy it is to listen to this podcast.
Let's go. That's what it's all about.
Goodbye, Gains Gurus. Thank you for listening and see you on the next episode of TMGP.